If you've ever looked up at the moon and wondered what it would be like to have a clock there, then this is the video for you. Today, we're going to talk about why it's so important for humans to put clocks on the moon and how they will help us in our exploration of space. So let's get started. Why do we need clocks on the moon? The moon is our closest celestial neighbor and has been a source of wonder and fascination for humans for centuries. In recent years, there has been a growing interest in exploring the moon and establishing a human presence there. This renewed interest has led to a proposal that may sound a little unusual, putting clocks on the moon. But this is not as crazy as it sounds. In fact, it's a very practical idea that can help us in many ways. The most obvious reason for putting clocks on the moon is to keep track of time. This may seem like a simple matter, but it's actually quite complicated. You see, time doesn't work the same way on the moon as it does on Earth. The moon's gravity is weaker than Earth's, which means that time passes slightly faster there. Additionally, the moon rotates more slowly than the Earth, which also affects the passage of time. This means that if we want to send astronauts to the moon and establish a permanent presence there, we need to have an accurate way of keeping track of time. Otherwise, communication between Earth and the moon could become very difficult. Imagine trying to schedule a meeting with someone who is 384,000 miles away and has a different concept of time. It could be a recipe for disaster. Therefore, having clocks on the moon that are synchronized with those on Earth would be essential for coordinating activities and ensuring that everyone is on the same page literally. But it's not just about keeping track of time. There are other benefits to having clocks on the moon as well. For example, they could be used to calibrate navigation systems. If we want to explore the moon accurately, we need precise navigational data. Clocks on the moon could provide the accuracy we need to map the surface of the moon and ensure that spacecraft land in the right places. This is especially important for missions that involve sample return, such as the upcoming sample return mission by NASA and the China National Space Administration. In addition, clocks on the moon could be used to study the planet's interior. By measuring the time it takes for signals to travel from Earth to the moon and back, we can gain insights into the moon's core and mantle. This could help us better understand the formation and evolution of the moon, as well as its relationship to the Earth. Finally, clocks on the moon could be a source of energy. Although the moon doesn't have an atmosphere, it does receive sunlight, which could be harnessed by solar panels. This energy could then be used to power the clocks and other equipment on the moon. This could be a sustainable way to provide power for future moon bases and exploration outposts, reducing our reliance on traditional energy sources. How will clocks on the moon help astronauts during their missions? Astronauts who visit the moon face a unique set of challenges, from the harsh lunar environment to the psychological effects of being away from Earth. Having clocks on the moon could be a valuable tool in helping them overcome these challenges. One of the biggest challenges for astronauts on the moon is staying oriented. The lunar surface lacks familiar landmarks, and the sky is filled with stars that do not align with the constellations we know. This can make it difficult to determine which direction is up or down, left or right. Clocks on the moon could provide a helpful reference point for astronauts, allowing them to keep track of their orientation at all times. This would be especially useful during extravehicular activities when astronauts are outside of their spacecraft and in danger of becoming lost or disoriented. In addition to providing a sense of direction, clocks on the moon could also help astronauts keep track of time. As mentioned earlier, time passes slightly differently on the moon than it does on Earth due to the differences in gravity and rotation speed. This means that astronauts need to adjust their internal clocks to the lunar day, which is about 29.5 hours long. Clocks on the moon could provide a visual reminder of the passage of time, helping astronauts stay on schedule and avoid missing important events or deadlines. This is especially important for long-duration missions, where astronauts need to maintain a sense of normalcy and routine. But perhaps the greatest benefit of clocks on the moon for astronauts is the psychological boost they could provide. Seeing a familiar object, like a clock on a strange and alien landscape, could provide a sense of comfort and familiarity. This could help astronauts cope with the isolation and stress of living and working on the moon. Clocks on the moon could also serve as a reminder of home and everything astronauts are fighting for, which could motivate them to push through difficult challenges and complete their missions successfully. What kind of clocks should we put on the moon, and how will they work? The type of clocks we put on the moon will depend on our specific needs and objectives. For example, if our primary goal is to keep track of time, then we may want to install atomic clocks on the moon. Atomic clocks are the most accurate clocks we have ever built, and are able to measure time to within a few seconds every billion years. This level of accuracy would be invaluable for coordinating activities between Earth and the moon. However, atomic clocks are large and expensive, and may not be practical to send to the moon. In that case, we may want to consider using other types of clocks, such as cesium fountain clocks, which are smaller and more portable than atomic clocks, but still very accurate. Alternatively, we could use optical clocks, which are even more accurate than cesium fountain clocks, and could potentially be miniaturized for use in space exploration. Once we have chosen the type of clocks we want to use, we need to think about how to power them. The moon does not have an atmosphere, so solar power is the most likely option. However, we need to take into account the fact that the moon rotates very slowly, which means that one side of the moon receives sunlight for 2 weeks at a time before rotating out of view. This presents a challenge for maintaining continuous operation of clocks on the moon. One solution could be to use batteries to store energy during the 2 weeks of daylight, and use that energy to power the clocks during the 2 weeks of darkness. Another solution could be to use nuclear power, which could provide a reliable and long-lasting source of energy for clocks on the moon. Finally, we need to consider how we will synchronize clocks on the moon with those on Earth. Time on the moon passes slightly differently than it does on Earth due to the differences in gravity and rotation. This means that we need to account for these differences when synchronizing clocks between the two planets. One way to do this would be to create a new time zone for the moon, perhaps called Lunar Time, that is synchronized with coordinated universal time on Earth, but adjusted to account for the differences in time on the moon. Alternatively, we could choose to leave the moon on Greenwich Mean Time, or coordinated universal time, and simply add a few seconds of adjustment when necessary. This would allow for easy communication and coordination between Earth and the moon. We also need to decide how we will maintain and repair the clocks on the moon. Since the moon does not have an atmosphere, it is constantly bombarded by meteoroids and cosmic radiation, which could damage the clocks over time. We will need to send missions to the moon periodically to check on the status of the clocks and make any necessary repairs or adjustments. This will require careful planning and coordination to ensure that the clocks remain accurate and reliable. In conclusion, putting clocks on the moon is an idea that may seem strange at first, but it's actually very practical and can provide us with many benefits. From keeping track of time to studying the moon's interior, clocks on the moon can help us in many ways as we explore and settle on the lunar surface. While there are challenges to consider, such as the harsh lunar environment and the need for maintenance, the potential benefits of clocks on the moon outweigh the difficulties. As we continue to plan for future missions to the moon, it's time we start thinking seriously about putting clocks on our closest celestial neighbor. Do you think we should put clocks on the moon? And if so, what type of clocks should we use? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more exciting space exploration content. Thanks for watching.